Mastering list printing in Python.
And that is why, again, it comes back to the fact, and that is why you need to understand, you need to go over different ways of doing the same thing, because that helps you understand the differences between them. And those differences help you understand how you can deal with different scenarios within Python. Printing lists is not complicated. Printing lists is not an issue at all, but how to deal with data on a higher level, if you're able to deal with data, clean data, wrangle data, at that point, you become highly employable in Python, because there's a whole field specific to that called data science. But it helps you understand exactly what you do at that level. You clean data, you format data to present it in easily recognizable patterns. So going over different methods would help you clarify and understand in much more depth exactly on how to use Python, and slowly move towards understanding the higher level concepts in Python. Now, if we talk about the benefits of this hard way, it provides us full control over the list, as it allows manual iteration over each and every element, and helps us have complete control over the output. And number two, it helps us customize the output and format it according to whatever we need. We talked about this earlier, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. The drawbacks are also very clear. It's very, very verbose. I mean, it might not seem very verbose here because we're dealing with a smaller list, and two, there's not much else we're doing here. We're just going over the code of 2 to 3 lines. But if you have thousands and thousands of lines, 1 or 2 lines, extra lines per per logic add up when when you have a third party person coming in reading the code. And also, it's less readable. So again, a third party comes in, he goes over the code. It's going to become a little bit tricky for him to parse through thousands and thousands of lines of code when we have iterations or loops, because it becomes less readable for them. And keep in mind, while this might not seem important, it is very important, because in most professional circumstances, someone would be going over a code. And if you make it easier for him, he'll make it easier for you. So the third way that we can print list is probably what we call the Pythonic way. So what do we mean? But what do we mean when we say the Pythonic way? In Python, Python is a programming language that's slightly unique compared to other programming languages. It has different aspects to it. It's much more easy to understand. It's much more easy to learn. And it is because it has a lot of these abstractions. What I mean by abstractions are higher level functions that do a lot of things in other programming languages that you need to do by yourself. For example, in the very introductory level language called C, that's the first language that modern day language that came in the 90s. In C, you have to, there's no print function. So you have to manually print each character one by one and through a for loop. So, but in Python, you can just use print. I mean, a lot of modern languages like JavaScript, also you have the print function, or equals to that. But the Python just doesn't have that. Python does a lot of abstraction like this. It has a lot of higher level functions that you could use that other languages don't possess. So in Python, or Python programmers in particular, use special ways or more concise ways to leverage those higher order functions to do and code in a much more efficient way within Python's environment. So that's what we refer to when we mention the Pythonic way. If you look at this piece of code right here, you'll notice that we use the join method and list comprehension for a far more concise and efficient code. So here you'll notice within the print function especially, it's exactly like the easy way, but here we're not just printing the list, we're doing it in a different way. So here, we're not just printing it on the console. First, if you look at the map function, we're doing 2 things there. The map function. There are 2 arguments to a map function. In where one argument is the list. That's the second argument that we have that we want to process. And the first argument is str. So what is the map function? If I go make it very, very simple, the map function quite simply is a for loop, or a loop basically, right? That goes over all elements of a data type. In this case, that is a string, and does a certain action on that, right? And that action is defined by my first argument, which is str. So what I'm telling the map function is to go over every element of the list, just like the for loop I did in the hard way, and convert it to a string. That's the first function. Again, when you're reading a collection of, if you will, functions used together, like we have on line 2, you'll notice that we read from the innermost function to the outermost function, basically to understand what's happening. Give me a second. I think my connection dropped to the server. But basically, at this point, you'll understand that map function is taking the list data, converting it to string. That's first part. Second part is the join function. We're using the empty space here to join dot join. What this means is that the string output we're getting, whatever that may be, first, like for example, we're getting 1 out of the map argument. We join that with a space bar after that, like with the empty space after that. So it's 1 space 2 space 3 space 4, so on and so forth. And all of it is a concatenated string. The join function basically concatenates a collection of objects into a concatenated string. So with that, we'll run this function and see if we get our desired result. And as we get the same result we were expecting as in the previous 2 cases. This approach is considered Pythonic as it leverages built-in Python functions, and it makes the code more readable, efficient. You might say, hold on, we don't know what map function meant or the join function. But the thing is, most people on a professional level understand a lot of the built-in higher order functions in Python. And in this case, if you're just starting out, this is a starting point for you. Open Python documentation. If you don't know where to find it, search it on Google, Python docs. You'll open the link that you find for the Python docs there. Within that, search the map and join functions, read through the documentation, understand those functions, use it a couple of times, you'll get familiar with it, you'll get easy with it, and move on. Because at the crux of being a good Python programmer is to understand as many of these extremely useful higher order functions as you possibly can. Because that would make you, that is basically how you can become a really good Python programmer, becoming good at these functions and leveraging them to do tasks quickly and efficiently compared to the normal way you have to do those tasks in other programming languages. In summary, the easy way was the quick and the simple way. The hard way provided more control, but it was less concise, and the Pythonic way focused on readability and efficiency. The choice of the method depends on the specific requirements of your code and your preference for simplicity or control. Before we wrap up our video, I would like to ask you to leave your comments down in this video, because again, this topic was also a topic that we identified as you were requested to create a video on it on one of our previous comments. And that is very important because it helps us to create videos on topics that answer your problems, and that is how we create value for our viewers going forward. Similarly, give us a like so the YouTube algorithm helps more people like you see our video. And if you learned anything valuable out of this video, subscribe to our channel as well. Before we wrap up, George, do you have anything to add at the end?
Nope, I think you said everything. Thanks, guys.
See you on